anyways, so that was right when the pandemic hit. I remember we then started meeting these officials later in the summer where you could travel more, and the workers started going back to work. And I told this the other thing that this lady did for us. I remember I told her, so okay, besides trying to work to our next goal was to excavate. We really want to excavate, and she kept saying she could get that permit for us, and there's all these different things she had to do. But then I told her I really wanted to get to the Iranian border. Now, right above, like we're a mile basically from the Iranian border, for the arc site. And right at the top of the border, you can see the border wall today that Erdogan has built. When you go to the visitor center, you look up, you'll see the border towers. There's a border wall he built, kind of like what Trump wanted to do with the Mexican border. You have this like 3 meter high wall, cement, and there's a service road beside it on the Turkish side. So the wall and road is actually on Turkish territory, and behind it is the official border, and so which is a barbed wire border. And then you have every maybe half a kilometer, you have these towers, which are military towers on the Turkish side. And I told them I really want to get up there because I wanted to check out. Ron White had talked about seeing ancient inscriptions up there, including one that had the boat shape with 8 faces in it and some birds. And so he thought maybe ancient tourists had made a petroglyph, made a stele, which is a rock column that put writing or petroglyphs or pictograms, type of rock art. And he said he went up there in 1984 and saw these broken up pieces that were used in the border marker. So they not only have these border towers, they have these markers that are maybe a couple meter, maybe a meter high or meter and a half, so 3 or 4 feet high. Is this every less? I think it'd be less than a half, maybe like 250 meters or half a kilometer. That would have these markers, and he said 2 or 3 of them had these inscriptions on it. They had reused the rock and put it into the modern marker. And so he had a couple photographs, and one was broken up. And you could see this piece. It looked like there was the pointed end of the boat shape, and maybe a bird. Like he said, there was 2 ravens. You remember the biblical story? There's 2 birds that
Mm.
Noah let out, and so we were. No one had ever got up there since he was there and taken those photographs in the mid '80s. And so everyone's tried. Everyone I knew has tried to go up there, but it's a million. You're right beside the border with Iran, and in the past, during Ron's time when he was working out there, it was less secure, you could say, and the soldiers kind of let you do what you want. Like you could walk out there and whatever. Now you can't. There's cameras everywhere, sensors, drones, barbed wire. There's a military base now up there, and so to get to even the spot where these so-called inscriptions were, you'd have to go through the base. And so I told this lady archaeologist, the Turkish lady, I said, "Hey, if you can get permission for that, I'll pay you extra." I remember this was in 2021, I think, that this is the summer, and it might have been 2022, but anyway, it was the summer. I remember she finally comes to me and says, "We got permission to go check it out first. Let's just see if we can get out to the border." So we go out there, and I remember we actually get behind the wall. So we're in between the Turkish, 20-foot high wall and the actual border, which is barbed wire, and we're at the base of this one tower. And right there, right beside it, is the smaller rock formation, rock monument that on the Turkish side had the number. I remember 65 spray painted on it, but from Ron's photographs, the ancient inscriptions were on the Iranian side, and the ancient. So, and we couldn't get to it because the barbed wire is between us and this rock monument. And the commander said, "Well, I'm sorry, but actually, we would let you go out there if you could, but it's mined, so you
Mm.
blow yourself up walking out there." And I'm like, "Okay, that's not good." So he suggested, it was his idea. He said, "Well, we could fly a drone to fly out around all these, there's like 3 or 4 of them. I mean, they go all the way up and down the border, but the ones we were focused in on, I think we were 4 of them." And so, anyways, he suggested the drone. using a drone. And so when we, this was a 1 day trip up to see what's going on, like survey the land kind of thing. And thankfully, and then they knew I was American. They had to, like, they took photographs of the passport, logged us in. And then they were always with us, the commander and he had a bodyguard and then his soldiers. And so after that was finished, went back down to the city, 30, 40 minutes away, and we were talking with the archaeologist. She was there with me, and she said, "Well, let me try to get a permit to fly a drone." Like, the commander suggested we do the drone, but she said, "This is going to be very difficult because you'd have to fly it into Iran, the drone."
Mm.
So, you know, think what's happening now with
Yeah.
drones in Iran. And so this is 2022. I don't, maybe it might have been 21, but so um, 1 month later, she says she has the permission. Of course, this is the same person who said we had permission to do the survey work in 2019, this archaeologist. And anyways, but she shows me the official document, and I had it translated, so it was an official permit to do this. And she has me listed down as her helper. Like, she's the archaeologist. So she goes there, and so I was going to document this, and she was going to, like, I was her assistant, and I was the media guy, like, the photographer, but my equipment was a drone. And so I didn't ask questions like, okay, who knows what or what we're doing. I mean, like what type of mission do we have this time? I assumed the Iranians knew because I didn't want. It was my drone too that was being flown. It wasn't like one of theirs. So we get up there, and the commander has very specific instructions for me. He says you can't do any videoing, only pictures, and you only can take pictures of the actual panels of this rock monument for each one. So you can fly out to them and then go around and take pictures, close ups, and you can't take a wide shot photos of the border area, so you can see then where everything's at, the military posts and all that. I said, okay. And I remember we get up there, and he was watching real, like, I had the screen, and you're doing it. It was like pressure. I'm doing the first couple stone monuments, and him and his assistant, and his assistant is actually his bodyguard, who's armed, and making sure we don't hurt the commander. And he's there, and then you have the one tourism official in the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, and then you have the archaeologist. So it was, five of us, and besides the soldiers would meet, coming and going in that area. And I remember they're all watching the screen, and I'm just flying this drone up. I'm thinking, oh, okay, I've done a lot of drone work, like in Saudi and Noah's Ark area. So this by this time, I'm feeling comfortable with flying drones around and not cause a problem. But my only thing I could think of is, do the Iranians know? Will they shoot this
Mm.
down, or will I get too close to the surface and it'll set off a mine? And I'm thinking, oh yeah, because the guy said it was mine. So if I fly close enough, maybe it'll recognize the lithium batteries in this metal. It was a Mavic 2, I think we had at that time, and it wasn't all plastic. So, anyways, it was good. And the only one time we were at the bottom of the hill, and one of the markers, and the marker was actually further away from us, not right beside the barbed wire. So the actual border at that location was further from the wall, and I was flying the drone up, and then you go over to where the marker was, and I remember I lost connection with the drone. On your controller is like gone, and I was trying to send commands to take pictures. He was on the back side, so you're actually in the Iranian side, pointing the drone down, the camera at that side of the rock formation, the stele they call it. This border marker made up of different stones cemented together, and I couldn't, like, take a picture. I kept sitting there, and then my screen went black, and it said lost connection with drone. And I'm thinking, oh no, maybe they had their anti-drone, whatever. They're going to take away, like, the drone will then fly away to Iran. And the biggest problem is that every time we flew the drone, we didn't make a backup. You just do this really quick. You go to one marker, you fly it. So all the memory card, the SD card that has all the photos is on the drone. So if it crashes or goes to Iran, you just lost everything. And so when I lost the connection, that was our last marker too. Everything would have been gone. But thankfully, DJI drones, this is the big Chinese one company. Their drones has it. So if you lose the connection, theoretically, it just goes up in the air and it automatically flies home, like where you started from. And it did that. It went up, and then finally I got connection again. I can control it. Um, but that was probably, besides the initial flight with the commander watching. Anyways, the whole story is, I get it back, the data, we're looking at these pictures, and then suddenly we realized because on one side you have the Turkish numbers. They use our numbers, so I know what you call those. It's not Latin or Roman numerals, but it's it's like 1, 2, 3, 4,
Mhm.
5. So on the Turkish side, on each block from their, they have like the one marker we have Ron White standing next to in a couple photographs. It has like what you think is the boat formation. It has the pointed thing on the Iranian side. Well, on the Turkish side, that one had the numbers in black, spray painted on the rock, 65. And then you go down to the next one, it had 64, 63, and then this way was 66, 67. And then we realized, oh, they're marking these markers with numbers. This is marker number 60, whatever, like mile markers on a road. So okay. Then when we looked at the other side, the Iranian side, for all these markers, except for that one where I lost the connection, we realized that they're doing the same thing, but in Farsi,
Mm.
with Iranian numbers than the Farsi being the language. So when you look at Farsi numbers, and I just like, okay, well, let's look up because some of it looks like Arabic. At first, I thought it was Arabic, but like the Farsi number 2 and 3 is the exact same way that Arabic 2 and 3 is written, and it goes up, and there's like a couple humps for the 2 and the 3 hump, dips, whatever for the 3, and but then I realized no, because they had like other symbols for the numbers, and so then I realized, okay, this is Farsi. So I look up a chart on Google, like images. I looked it up, and I'm just looking at the numbers. I'm like, oh, so 65 in Farsi is this. Um, you have the what is the one symbol? It was like this what Ron thought was a bird, symbol, and then right beside it, the 5 is an upside down heart. But in Ron's photograph, part of the rock is broken, so when
Mm.
they just shoved it into place, you just see this pointed heart shape in, but you don't even, unless you look. In fact, I didn't have to do all this work. I could have figured this all out just using his old photograph. Because when you zoomed into his old photograph, you can see that it's not just like the arc going all the way to the bottom, actually curling up like a heart would do. And so you see this bottom shape here curling up where they carved it. And then I looked at the other photographs, and it was a mat. Like it was a pattern. Yeah, on the other side, the Iranian side, they had Farsi, and now instead of carving them onto the rocks like they did in the past, now they just spray paint the numbers. And so that one broken up one is okay. That's 65. Then there's another photograph of Ron standing by this border marker, and it was 63. And it was the one that I didn't get permission to do, and I didn't put on my list. I didn't know that I thought 63 was right beside this other one until we realized they're numbered and sequenced. So 63 was way up at the top of this cliff, and that wasn't on our permit to go up there. And they have a Turkish tower right there, and I ended up just looking. And so this time, all we did is using Ron's photographs. He took a photo which was crystal clear. He's standing next to this tower, this little stone monument, and it actually carved into the stone blocks, was Farsi 63, but he had interpreted as being like the 3 being a
Mm.
bird, like the wings of a bird. But when you looked at his reconstruction drawing, finally, he had a drawing where he said, "This is what the monument should have looked like." You have the 8 faces in a boat, this ridge of rock above the arc, this cliff face, and then 2 birds above it, and then a mountain scene. So that was it. That's no words, just a picture. When you look at how he reconstructed the birds, and you look at what he was saying, his actual photographs of what he said, okay, this is the bird. It was doesn't even match. And so I was like, oh, so Ron didn't even use what they actually carved. Because what's carved on the rocks, what he was saying is a bird. No, you look at it closely. Oh, it's this 3 in Farsi. And so, yeah, I did probably have to go through all that permit process. Like we could have, if we knew it was a pattern like that, we could have then understood that he misinterpreted the data. So that was kind of a bummer.